it's not just a simple set up your mobile phone and shoot something and everything will turn out. You have to understand what those processes are.
A good thing travels fast. Actually, a bad thing travels further and faster, nearly a 10x. But at the same time, a testimonial will travel a lot further than an ad or piece of PR or something published. In the room, 52 Jokers Wild. Now, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, depending where you are on the planet, as they say. We're coming live, or it could be dead, I don't know, depending on what time this is again, from little old Emerald Isle, Ireland. Both north and south at the same time. We're joining the dots. We are Intertrade Ireland. We are bringing the island of Ireland out. Now, what we're doing today is, we don't know. I was having a conversation, we were having a conversation just before we pressed record, and we're trying to arrive at today's, what is it all about? And I do my favourite little thing, which is I have a little book of sayings or calendars or dates here, and September 25th, that's what it is today in this timeline, in this multiverse. And what it says is, first comes thought, then organisation of that thought into ideas and plans, then transformation of those plans into reality, and the beginning, as you will observe, is in your imagination, which is back to thought. And we even touched on number 42, I think this is number 43, the computer, deep thought. This is the computer. And some of us think deeply, some of us skirt above the waves. And I go deep, I go wide, I go long, and that's just in a fraction of a microsecond. And I look as if I'm staring into space, but I'm in deep thought. I'm thinking, I'm planning world domination. And that's what we're talking about earlier on. We have plans for world domination. We're not too sure how we're going to do it. But transformation, we were thinking, we have a thought, we have an idea, we're working on the plan. That transformation now requires we take thought, an idea into reality and implement a plan that might get us there. And that's where we're starting again today. We want to conquer the world in the Film Production Academy and 52 Jokers Wild, the podcast, the vlogcast, the personalities, the jokers, and our plan for our best world-in-class film school. That's one of the first mentions of that. It's out there. If someone wants to read up on it, they can. But it will be forming more and more of what we're talking about as we go on to try and evidence how to bring ideas into reality and make businesses happen, brand them, make them real, get them out there, employ people, get customers, pay suppliers, create value, and that's what we're working on. We want to make our ideas real. We want to make our plans a reality. We want to make our dreams transform into tangible somethings, or even intangible somethings if it's a service that can be bought over the internet. But at the base core, we don't want to be the Walter Mitty's talking about it the whole time. We want to be... Actually, no, I love the film Walter Mitty because the most recent one, I think it was Ben Stiller, it became a reality. He dreamt it every day and then he went and lived it. That's what we're doing now. We're dreaming it more and more every day, and we're actually starting to live it. George.
I was just talking to the Chinese there. They said that
I noticed that. I was going, you went on the phone.
Yeah. They said that, if we just hang on a few moments, that they'll basically stir things up. They could take out the Americans. They might have a few problems with the Russians, but the Taiwanese said that they might be able to sort them out because they would then back up the Americans and stuff with their old digity things and stuff like that. So
I thought you were on the bloody phone. Okay. I said, I got to keep on going. I was finished about like 5 minutes ago. You looked as if you had a phone call. I said, I'm going to have to keep on going. But he's normally giving out to me for keep on going. Now he's pretending that he was acting and he's making it up and making it look as if it was a bit of a prop. Now I don't know. I was hoping there was a phone call there, something important, but it was Mr. Walter Mitty himself on steroids going off there thinking he's acting. But back to you again.
No, I think based on what you were saying earlier on, the little saying about the first off, you come up with an idea and you develop it into a plan, and then you work out some kind of strategy and how to implement, and then you break everything down into smaller ideas and then work out how to do that. And I was actually saying, just as we were about to come on air there, that everything that I've worked on, whether it is a single image or a feature film or a documentary, they've all started off with just these little ideas that we've had to try and work out. And then you try to see if there's a kind of structure and how feasible those structures are and what would you need to do. Now, again, the other thing is that quite often when you plan a lot of stuff, what you end up with is a compromise. It never quite works out the way you hoped. But until you've set up those initial ideas and then started to work through the processes and procedures, you don't know whether you're going to achieve it or not. And the main thing is to try and minimize all the risks that you're going to have. And I know that we've already been talked about recently with a conversation that I think you had with a colleague, Garvin, that they were saying, well, why aren't you starting already? Why aren't you just going? Well, at this particular point in time, we know that there are projects out there that we could take on board, but we need to see whether or not they're feasible enough to fit into our model. And just because somebody's got a project and it all looks as though it's going to be hunky-dory doesn't necessarily mean it will fit into what we want to do. And what we need to do is to break that project down to see whether it could feasibly work within our particular way of our particular program. Now, I know from experience of working with others, directors, cameramen, producers, actors, and I should be saying camera persons, basically there can be all sorts of different characteristics or personality types, and they may not fit into our model just because their aspirations are such that they want to do certain things in a certain way. And if they're not able to collaborate with us, there's no way we could actually work on that project. And those are things that we need to be conscious of, because if we take up a project and those people go off in another direction, that could actually just scupper what we're doing. And I've already experienced that on a project or two in the past, where what we thought was the expectations of the project wasn't being met, and all of a sudden the producer went off and did something differently without informing us, and it scuppered the project that I was working on. We don't want to be there. We want to make sure that when we start a project, we finish a project, we make sure it does what it needs to do for the students that we want to work with, so that they can successfully achieve either a degree or a master's degree. We also want to make sure that we have an avenue for those films to go somewhere, so that they could also bring back another kind of revenue back, so that we can create this model that works. What Garvin's been talking about is effectively an engine, and we need to fuel that engine in the right way. And if we get the wrong project, it could be like putting diesel into a petrol engine and it just won't go anywhere. But we need to make sure that engine works properly.
Excuse me. I had an interesting conversation earlier on with a colleague. Now, I respect, he's an interesting businessman who I respect. He's grown a successful business and he's quite knowledgeable. And we have a coffee morning relationship. He gives me a call and we go for coffee. Now, if he rings me, I know he wants something. If I ring him, I'm just going down the bottom of the road and I wouldn't mind having a cup of coffee. But we know who pays for the coffee depending on who rings who. And as I said, if I ring, it's just, we're talking weather forecast and the what ifs and the what, where, whens and the daydream believing. If he rings, he actually has a business question in the back of his mind, or he has something he wants to solve. Turns out this time he was asking about green screens. He's doing a project with on Enterprise Ireland and a particular program he's on. He needs to sort of do a bit of the social media part of the business plan, and and his thing is going to be something to do with online training. And he spotted what we're up to and going, right, what's the minimum framework? What's the minimum process that I need to be doing for my people to get them to this level of professionalism? I was going, no, that's an awful lot of questions, from the kit to the presentation to what we talked about in a couple of our previous episodes is you've got to be going brand new front and centre. When there's brand new front and centre, you can start branding the business backward. You're now aligning the two. You haven't even spoken about product or service. I'm saying then you can introduce that, because if they don't believe you, and they're not going to believe the business. So this alignment of perception before anyone ever presses play. And that's where we're at. We're on a journey in these little episodical podcasts, vlogcasts, tweets and promos on the various... and we're going, what's for sale? Nothing is for sale. What's currently for sale is brand us, believability, story us, that if we open this mouth and we say something, has it got a chance of being believed? And that's the journey we're currently on. And that's what I was trying to say to him. He's going, why don't you go straight to sale? And you can do this tomorrow. I go, we can't, because they're not even going to listen to that, because they don't know who we are, don't know where we came from, we've no back history, or if we have back histories, we have to align our current back histories or where we were in the past into this new something that has no back history. So we're aligning brand us into a new entity that it can be believed going forward to deliver on a quality value something. And he was starting to hear the language and go, okay, I understand what it is you're saying now, but then he went straight back to, but why don't you make your millions tomorrow and still sell this? And so I said, that's a year away. And as George just said, it's the image on that little page here beside me is, I can explain it on the back of a matchbox. If A happens and B happens and C happens, everybody makes money, everybody's happy, and we all go home, we're all multimillionaires, and repeat, like, rinse, repeat. And we can keep on doing this ad infinitum, franchised across multiple areas and locations and operations. But at the end, to take one of those and go, the complexity hidden in that sentence is 40 people doing 500 different activities over 16 weeks in a budget level of 1 to 3 million, of a project management plan of moving parts of risk and responsibility and deliverability. Now we know that can all be done, and it's a monstrous task load of work, but it's wrapped up in the simplicity of, if we deliver this film at that cost, in this timeline, wouldn't it be great? We'd all make some money and we'd all go home and do it again. And it's so easy to say, but complexity is wrapped up in the language of simplicity, and others just hear the simple and they won't understand what it is you're saying to them, because you've got to train them to understand the question and the answer.
And the thing is that you've just been talking about somebody asking you what seemed to be for them a simple question: how did you set up the green screen? Now, it's taken us weeks to get this sort of sorted out. Now, I know some people just set things up very, very quickly, but if you're talking about training up a group of people, which is what he sounds like, that's a fairly intensive piece of activity. There's a lot of things that need to go on.
One better. It's multiple languages and multiple locations of lecturers and professors that are just signing up to the centre to become under a process and a template that doesn't currently exist. So that's the difficulty. It's easy to say, but we're evidencing from what's out there that we could have professional sound and video, but the person that we're interviewing could have nothing. And therefore, when you join the two together, it brings the quality of the whole thing down rather than up.
Yep, and that's the difficulty, because even today I've had to go through my system and tweak things to make sure that sound levels were okay on Audacity, because I just discovered that in the preferences in Apple I couldn't change the volume, and things weren't quite working out. But we have to there's a certain process of monitoring that we have to go through, even in ourselves, to make sure we've got our earphones in it, or that something's working properly. It's not just a simple set up your mobile phone and shoot something and everything will turn out. You have to understand what those processes are. It's a practice. It's something you have to keep practicing and doing and checking and modifying, and then go through the cycle again. We talked about an engine. It's an engine cycle. If you're doing a piece of software, you have to work out what the loop is, and once all the first iterations have been executed, then it goes back to start and goes through it again, just to keep the thing going.
Yeah, we are. We're oiling the engine.
About. Yeah,
let's say we have the right petrol. I said we've got the right fuel, and we're saying we're putting the oil in and we're maintaining it. We've built the engine, and we're saying the tracks can't go around in circles. So the thing is, there's a process there. It can go anywhere. This engine is strong. This engine is solid, and that's. So I think we've built our engine, but we don't know if it's a new look or.
Don't forget, because remember you talked about the oil. Because if the oil's not there, if it's not the right oil. It can actually
engine will
destroy.
blow up. And that's the weird thing. And that's what you're saying. We have to massage our own egos. We have to affirm to ourselves that things are okay and you're doing the right thing. And then this is the oil to keep on going. Now the fuel is not just the oil, and there's a fuel, and the fuel is okay. We know we can keep on going. We have the tank is half full, full, and we can keep on refilling it. Now we're saying, where are we going? And that's where people, that's the content. You go, what are the stories stories. The story can't keep on being the same story. You can't keep on drawing in the past. I was lost this and I stressed that and I was adopted. It doesn't matter. You can use that once, twice, and thrice. You can't keep on using that as your content going forward. What's interesting is, he again, I'm taking a measure from the most recent conversation, and he was saying, right, I got all these professors working for me, or will be, because they've said they've given their interest to the centre when I put a call out for action, and now we're going, but you now have to package them to be one, as the one machine, the one process, that are coming with their separate agendas, that all they want from you is the money and or the glory that you're going to deliver to them. So, and they have expectations, and are they going to be managed? Are they realistic or unrealistic? And who's going to be the cause of failure? What are the failure points? In a sense, as like you said, we could start this process of filmmaking tomorrow if we wanted to. But the problem with that is the production or the investors' expectations is they own everything you're to deliver on. They own it all, you own nothing. This managing of expectation back to, no, we are your white knight, we are your savior, we are your de-risker, we are your revenue generator, we're the value creator. You can stick it in the bank and you're getting negative interest rates. Actually, if you do what you're currently doing, you're going to lose half it before you start because it has no tax break. So it's this game. It's actually a battle of wits, a battle of strategy, a battle of language, of tax break, and everyone's selling a Blair Witch, and no one seems to be selling the other 99.999% duds on the planet. So it's who owns what, who's the value creator. What are the expectations on both sides or in all relationships? And, all this is in a thought process that then has to be brought to tangible legal something. That expectation is managed on the in and on the out. So it actually would stop most people before they ever started, because it's frightening, the amounts of complexity and legality, and all you want to do is make film or go to work, go home, get paid.
The thing is that you're talking at the financial level and the business level. One of the other things that we have to take on board is that you have two bodies. There's the filmmakers, not the financial structure, but the filmmakers and the students, two separate entities. They each need to be.
This is in our structure now. It's not. And most people out there, we have a trifecta. Exactly.
Yeah, but you're still having to think this, because from a filmmaker's perspective, we have to make sure that there is a safe bubble, that all the people that are working there can work in an environment that they feel happy to work in, whether they're behind the camera or in front of the camera. And likewise, the students expect to be put into a safe environment where they're going to have a chance to learn. So and it's that interface that you've got to make sure that actually works. And if one element doesn't, it could actually upset the whole model for other people. And that's what we've got to make sure. Like, for example, if you're a director
for other people out there, there's one bunch of people paying for an experience of learning and coaching and mentoring and maybe even an internship. There's another bunch of people in that mix that are being paid to sell their skill set, to deliver on an ask of camera work or acting or delivering lines. So one bunch are being paid and performing. The other bunch are learning and being trained. Both bunches the money has been spent back and forward and delivering. One is delivering a set of experiences and the other is consuming a set of experience and reflecting the fact they got what they expected. None of them are the investor. They're going, I'm allowing all this happen, someone better pay me. So, I'm paying for both of them to have this experience and be paid to go to work. The investor's going, I already earned this money somewhere else. I can get a tax break sticking it in a pension. I can stick it in the bank and get X, Y, and Z. They're back to going, I'm not here for the good of my health. I'm not here in a philanthropic fashion. Well, maybe he might be, but predominantly they're not. They're going, where's my 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x? Not 8% and 7% of anything. It's double, triple, quadruple my money. Am I a venture capitalist? Am I first in the door? Am I just a pension fund wanting an 8% return? In this industry, in film, it's high risk, high reward. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. It more often doesn't than does. Therefore, and particularly in this micro budget area of, I think the figures are, let's say, from the 0 to 3 million. It is predominantly doesn't work. If we're talking commercials and ads, that's someone commissioning something for a little ad. It's everyone's paid. It's commercial. That is not micro budget filmmaking. That is not trying to create a Blair Witch. It's even the Joker was a 55 million something that delivered $1 billion return, but 55 million was the cheapest DC something out there. I don't even think it was a DC thing. It was what it was is. Well, yeah, the thing here is we're going, that's 10 times what we're talking.
Yeah.
So
most of the low budget films, most of the low budget films are basically learning tools for the people that are actually working on it, regardless. And they're actually giving, which is where our model works really quite nicely, because normally a lot of people are giving their time for free, or because they want to experience this so they can get the next job. That's their time. But
you can't package that and make money off the back of it. You can't. That can't be your model.
That's the problem. But that's what most people are trying to. What we're seeing is that if you can educate people so they feel as though they've got something else out of it, then that helps them to get the next job, as well as the experience. They've got the qualification.
You're creating it. Well, we're trying to create a marketplace. Yeah. But no, it says, well, I suppose, what does this relate to other people out there in non-film? We're just, again, we're saying we're a case study that, the language we're talking is the language we're living on a day-by-day basis. It's the industry funnel or channel that we're going to focus on, which is film training, film coaching, filmmaking in the micro-budget space. This is our subject matter expertise. We're just saying, but you pick any business language, it's going to be customer, supplier. You're selling something, you're buying something, you're transferring value at a cost. Customer has to be happy. Those businesses, if someone owns it, it could be the investor is the owner manager if it's a small little company, but if it's someone else's money financing the working capital and the day-to-day running of a business because they want to make a bigger return than sticking it in the bank or a hedge fund or stocks or shares or property, they're not getting into it for the good of their health. They want to turn this million into something else. They want to get 10 million back over 20 years. They're hoping it's going to go IPO, Uberized, but the likelihood of that could be quite small, except if you're in this tech space or this exponential space of it can explode into something else. But in the mama papa space of, it's based on labor force and stock holding. It has a certain volume of transactional basis of who's going by, who buys what. Have I got an online presence? I'm still shipping a physical stock, and I can only ship what I own if it's not drop shipping. And it's all about margin manipulation.
And the important thing... I think the important thing is that we've been looking at is actually to do with relationships. We've discussed that in the past. We're actually trying to build up relationships with our potential investors in our project through what we're actually saying in these shows. We want to build the confidence that they know that through what we're saying, the experience they're going to have with us is going to be one that they'll actually enjoy, and that they feel that the investment that they're putting in just for that short period is worthwhile. And I think that's the thing. Everybody wants to have some kind of relationship. Even if it's a person that supplies
I like
us
that.
with
the word.
Do you know what I mean? Even if it's if they're supplying a couple of buns with sausages in, we need to know that the relationship and the experience that they give us with that food to supply our actors, our whoever, means they don't get ill. That shuts down the the program or something like that. It's all about building up relationships and trusts, and that's what we now have to do through this form of marketing. It's not about going out there and sell, which is what a lot of people are doing to us. It's actually going out and say, look, here's why you can trust what we're doing through what we're actually saying, and we're actually doing because we're producing these things, which is why your colleague came back to you and said, could you tell us how to put a green screen up? They're now seeing
hidden in a cup of coffee. You're getting the technical advice. You'd be charging $2,500 to someone else to. You're going. No. Come on our course for that. You're going. I says we're actually creating that course. It's a 2-day event. It's for 6 people. It's going to be grant paid for by the government. But what you're going to walk away with is a template of how to put yourself front and center, brand your business in a space using the minimum of tech and understanding that it has to all align. Now, I said I like the word you just used there, because the last couple of words we used in our last show was it was a Dale Carnegie. I'm not even sure which Carnegie it was. I'm saying Dale all the time. But make friends and influence people. We changed to create relationships and influence people. Now, the relationships are end to end. We're saying the relationship for us in any business has to be the relationship with our suppliers, so we have what we need when we need it in the quality we need it. The relationship with our customers, so that they're interested in being involved and they want to consume and want to pay the price, and because they understand the value-price relationship. And the relationship with investors. The investors might be ourselves and or others in the future to grow the business. But this trifecta of relationship of customer, supplier, and employee, the ones in the middle going, they want to go the journey with you. It's all of these have to be at the same perceived quality and value. If there's any one up and from the bad bun or the bad sausage on set, that experience will ripple through the actors, and as you said, you cannot afford to be having any weak point in this. We are at this level of quality and value. We're not little, I don't mean not little, it's back to the ladder Rolls Royce conversation. You can't go cheap on cost to maximize value from the distance, from the price you're charging to the cost you're spending. We've actually figured out the more we spend on our customers, the more we're actually going to make in terms of value, because it's that future sell, testimonial relationship, enjoyed experience. It will save us on the marketing later on. It will draw the customers to it. It's that testimonial to the Airbnb and TripAdvisor sort of language of a good thing travels fast. Actually, a bad thing travels further and faster, nearly a 10x. But at the same time, a testimonial will travel a lot further than an ad or piece of PR or something published. So that's what we're realizing. We're going out there. We have to align all these relationships together. We have to find who wants to be involved in this, and then you can actually package what it actually is end to end. So everybody in the chain can look through the chain and understand the language and what's on offer and whether they want to be part of that journey and experience it.
And one of the things that's quite keen is in that building that relationships is so that you understand how each of those people works. Why interviews are so important. I say interviews, but long-term relationships, building those up and seeing how people work in situations, because I know that a film can be a struggle all the way from start to finish, and you've got to have a positive attitude. But if you have someone that can't quite work in that system, their negativity can unravel the whole process. Now, I know on a couple of projects that I've experienced, there was someone in the costume department that kept saying, "This isn't a real film, this isn't real," and everybody kind of going, "We stop that, this is real to me, this is where I am at the moment, and this is something I value doing and I want to put my effort in. All your negativity is just dragging me down, and if you're not careful, it's going to send people off who don't want to be here anymore. So let's work out what's causing your negativity so we can turn it into a positive, so we can actually move things forward." We had a similar sort of problem where somebody on one of our films didn't want to kiss somebody else. Now, we had to understand a little bit about different...
It wasn't in the script.
It was actually in the script, but they kind of didn't like the idea, and we had to understand ourselves a little bit about cultural backgrounds for the particular people that we were working with. So that was our understanding. How do we make this manageable? And actually, what we ended up doing was that the person caught the two of them just before they kissed. So they didn't have to actually physically kiss, and that actually gave a little bit of a laugh, so it added to the humour. But again, it's understanding the cultural backgrounds of where people are coming from. The more psychology you can understand, the better you can actually work with these people to make things run smoothly. Because at the end of the day, most people aren't trying to trip you up. They want it to be successful. But if they're not having a happy experience, that's where things can start to go wrong. And I think that we come back to working relationships, which is, in a working relationships, if the dynamics start to go out of kilter, the engine's not working, the tappets aren't working properly, right? One of the spark plugs has stopped working, then the whole engine goes out of alignment, and basically it could actually drive you off the road, and you can never achieve what you want to achieve. So I think these relationships become really, really important to make sure that we know that we can go on the journey together. But they don't happen instantly. We need to build them up over time.
And that's, I think, coming back to my business colleague or friend and or both, depending on where the conversation is and what cup of coffee is being paid for, it's friend or business. But or the hybrid in between, because it goes back and forward in the same sentence. But that aside, it's that relationship. I know he's a potential supplier later on. I know he's a potential customer later on. I also know he's a potential investor later on, or not. Or maybe he's too close because he knew the before, the dream, the bullshit, as they say. But then he starts watching the reality coming. The Walter Mitty is turning into reality over a condensed timeline of a year or so. And now he's going, oh, it's getting too real. What you were talking about there in Dreamland, I'm actually starting to see intangibility and visibility in these various mediums. And I'm starting to believe some of what you're talking about. I didn't believe it before because I heard it before too many times. And that's a bit of me in the past. It was the what if. Oh, I could do this, I could do that. We could do 100 things. We could do 1,000,000 things. You're doing nothing. When are you going to do it? Stop talking about it, do it. And that's what these people around me they're used to me for years is, yeah, we know you can do it, but you're not doing it. So we are doing it, but to them on the outside, they're oblivious to the complexity and the amount of moving parts that this doing and evidence that they will see on the outside. They will consume a 2-minute promo or a 30-minute podcast. Little do they know the day of editing and positioning and talking and consulting and idea generation and tagging in 5 different channels that went into it so they can actually press play. So the simplicity is what they're consuming. The simplicity of the tangible evidence of what they understand. And that's very interesting. They're a potential customer. And they like it or dislike it, and they'll have an opinion quite quick on it. But at the same time, in my head, if they only knew how to put this engine apart, we don't have an engine, we don't have any parts. We got to find the parts, we have to whittle them, we got to 3D print them, we have to make them up, we got to make them fit together, they don't fit together. And that's all behind the scenes, and that's the magic of film. We don't know there's 50 people around these 2 lovers kissing. When you pan out and you see the complexity and the madness of what's going on in reality, where it just looked like a couple in a coffee shop having a quick snog. No, 40 people on a payday and putting up an accommodation and eating the hot dogs at the stand behind and someone directing traffic. It's whose perception. That's what we're selling. We're selling the dream, not the reality.
And one of the things that's quite interesting, because I know we talked about one of our episodes was called Don't Give Up. One of the difficulties that we can have is if people are constantly telling us what we should be doing without having the full picture to be able to tell us what we should be doing, that can actually cause an irritation, because it can make you feel, will you stop it? It could feel like you're being hammered. And so we have to put those naysayers away again, because we know what we're actually doing. We know how much effort we're putting into what we're doing. We're at episode 43. Now, who would believe this back in May, that we'd be now recording episode 43? And not only that episode, but 3 little mini episodes from each episode. So what's that, 120 odd, 130 different little small things that we've been putting out on a daily basis. That's our engine.
So you're near 200 pieces of content on multiple channels, and that's just while we're at it. That's not the business. That's not what's going on in the background, in the bigger scheme of things in terms of employing or going to employ or creating opportunity or value. So back to that little page there. The deep thought, the dreams, what it looks like a year from now in multiple countries, in multiple languages, with multiple people, having all these relationships and consuming experiences and talking about how good or bad it was and helping to de-risk investors in micro-budget sort of filmmaking so more content can be out there. What we want to do is create more experiences and more jobs for those in this middle space. And we know where we're playing. We know what we're at. We know what we're the experts in. But for the other people out there, depending on what angle of silo they're coming from, they only see what they understand. They'll only consume their perception of it, and which is great. But there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of dots that we're joining, and an awful lot of people out there in business land, the same thing. It takes a lot to get that product to your mailbox. There's trucks and planes and trains and automobiles and staff and stock, and that's all out there for you to have that little package come in the door. So remember, simplicity is highly complex, and allow for that at the end of the day, because that's, because someone might be telling you something and you're undervaluing it based on what you're hearing and what your perception of it is. Hope to see you soon.
We're getting close to... Oh, okay.
No, I'll be back if you want me, yes. I thought you were giving me the nod.
No, I was about to do a little wrap up there, so I'll do a little
you wrap up, I'll wrap back. I wasn't too sure. You seem to be falling asleep at the wheel again.
No. I was actually watching the time here. We'll cut that little section out there. No, basically...
No, we won't. We'll leave it in.
So if we go back to what we started off with, a little saying that Garvin was talking about, which is generating the idea, putting a plan into action, working out the risks, and creating a little cycle until you've actually got the thing happening, and then you go back and start again. The first thing to do is to generate the first idea, sketch out a plan, and then work out the risks of that plan and start to take each iteration until you've actually put it into action, and then go again. And then go again. And that's how you build up your engine. So this is episode 43. I hope you've enjoyed it, and look forward to talking to you next time. Bye for now.
I won't even bother trying to wrap up. You're fed up with that. George has said it all. I was having a deep think about it. I have no plan of what I'm going to say next. So the reality is, this is it. It's always it. You can be sure you're going to listen to this if you plug in and tune in. So we look forward to listening or talking at you at a later date. But please listen in to the shows. You're going to enjoy it. Or if you don't, tell us about it and we'll adapt. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.
Do what it says on the tin. Follow and share.